You're floating in the warm waters of the Indo-Pacific, but you don't know it yet. You're still tucked inside an egg, developing in the darkness. Your mother chose this spot carefully, a rocky crevice where the current flows just right, bringing oxygen and carrying away waste. She's been here for weeks, guarding you and your siblings, refusing to eat. She waves her arms over the eggs constantly, making sure fresh water flows past. It's exhausting work, but she doesn't stop. She can't stop. Around you, hundreds of other eggs cluster together, like tiny pearls. Some of your siblings are already moving inside their shells, tentacles twitching as they grow stronger. You're doing the same, your body taking shape piece by piece. 8 arms unfold from your developing body, suckers forming in neat rows along each one. Your eyes grow larger, more complex, preparing for a world you've never seen. Your mother hasn't eaten in over a month now. She's getting weaker, her skin losing its vibrant colors. But she stays, protecting the eggs from crabs that try to sneak in and fish that circle nearby. Every threat gets driven off with a fierce display of flashing colors and spreading arms. She's burning through her own body to keep you alive. Then one day, it happens. The first crack appears in your shell. You push against it, using your newly formed arms to break free. The water tastes different out here, saltier, more alive. You're no longer than a grain of rice, translucent and delicate. Your eyes, already remarkably developed, take in the world for the first time. Light filters down from above, casting dancing patterns on the seafloor below. Your siblings are hatching too, dozens of them emerging into the water column. You don't stick around to meet them. Instinct drives you upward, toward the surface where tiny organisms drift in the current. You're hungry, desperately hungry, and you need to eat soon or you won't survive. But first, something catches your attention. Your mother is still there, weaker than ever. She's done her job. The eggs have hatched, and now she has nothing left to give. She drifts slowly toward the bottom, her colors fading to pale white. You don't understand what you're seeing, but you don't need to. The current carries you away, up toward the light, leaving her behind forever. You're a planktonic larva now drifting in the open ocean. This is the most dangerous time of your life. Everything out here wants to eat you. Fish patrol the water column, their mouths open wide, filtering out anything small enough to swallow. Jellyfish pulse through the water with trailing tentacles that spell instant death. Even other octopus larvae will grab you if they get the chance. Your only defense is to be invisible. Your skin can already change color and texture, though not with the precision you'll develop later. You make yourself as transparent as possible, matching the clear water around you. When shadows pass overhead, you freeze completely, hoping whatever it is doesn't notice you. Food is everywhere, but catching it is another challenge entirely. Tiny copepods zip through the water faster than you can grab them. You learn to ambush them, waiting until they drift close before shooting out an arm to snatch them. Each meal is a victory. Each successful hunt means you survive another day. The current carries you hundreds of miles from where you hatched. You have no control over where you're going, no choice but to ride the flow. Sometimes you're swept into rich feeding areas where plankton blooms create underwater clouds of food. Other times, you drift through empty blue water where meals are scarce and every calorie counts. Your body changes as you grow. Your arms get longer and more coordinated. Your chromatophores, the color-changing cells in your skin, multiply and become more sophisticated. You start experimenting with different patterns, flashing stripes and spots just because you can. It's like having a language written on your skin, though you don't know what any of it means yet. After weeks in the open water, something shifts. Your body feels different, heavier. You're no longer content to drift with the current. A new instinct pulls you downward toward the seafloor far below. It's time to leave your planktonic life behind and become a true octopus. The descent takes hours. As you sink deeper, the water grows darker and colder. The pressure increases with every meter, but your soft body handles it easily. Fish swim past, most ignoring you, though a few give chase. You're still small enough to be prey, but you're also fast enough to escape if you spot them coming. Finally, your arms touch sand. The bottom of the ocean stretches out in all directions, a landscape of rocks, coral, and sandy patches dotted with seagrass. This will be your home now, your hunting ground. But first, you need to learn the most important skill any octopus can master: how to disappear. Your skin is already remarkable, but down here, it becomes truly extraordinary. You press yourself against a piece of coral and watch as your colors shift to match it perfectly. Red and orange patches bloom across your body, mimicking the coral's texture so precisely that you seem to vanish completely. When you move to a sandy area, your skin turns beige and develops a grainy texture that matches the substrate exactly. But you're not just any octopus. You're a mimic octopus, which means you have abilities that most of your relatives can only dream of. You don't just match backgrounds. You can become other animals entirely. It's a power that will save your life more times than you can count. The first time it happens, you don't even realize you're doing it. A flatfish glides past, its body undulating in smooth waves as it swims. Something clicks in your brain, and suddenly you're doing the same thing. You flatten your body against the sand and ripple two of your arms in perfect synchronization, creating the exact same swimming motion. Your skin shifts to match the flatfish's mottled brown pattern. For a moment, you are a flatfish. Then the real thing swims away, and you return to being yourself. But something has awakened in your brain, a new way of seeing the world. Every creature you encounter becomes a potential disguise, a new identity you can slip into when needed. A school of small fish approaches, and you watch them carefully. Their silver scales catch the light as they move in perfect coordination. You spread 6 of your arms wide and let them trail in the current, moving them with the same synchronized rhythm. Your skin turns silver and develops the same reflective quality. The real fish swim past without giving you a second glance. Learning to hunt as a bottom dweller is completely different from catching plankton. Your prey is bigger, smarter, and more dangerous. Crabs scuttle across the sand with powerful claws that can easily crush your soft arms. Shrimp dart away at the first sign of movement. Fish have eyes that can spot you from across the reef, but you have advantages they don't expect. You can hide in plain sight, becoming invisible against any background. You can mimic their friends, their predators, or creatures they've never seen before. Most importantly, you can think. Your brain is already more complex than most vertebrates, capable of learning, planning, and solving problems. Your first successful hunt happens almost by accident. You're hiding among some rocks when a small crab wanders too close. Without thinking, you shoot out an arm and grab it. The crab struggles, its claws snapping at your skin, but your grip is too strong. Your other arms join in, wrapping around the shell and pulling the crab toward your hidden beak. It's over in seconds. The taste of fresh crab is incredible. Nothing you caught in the plankton comes close to this rich, satisfying meal. But more than the food, it's the accomplishment that matters. You hunted successfully. You're no longer just surviving, you're thriving. As days pass, you become bolder and more creative. You learn to use your environment as a weapon. You pick up shells and rocks, turning them into tools and projectiles. You discover that some prey species are afraid of certain predators, and you learn to mimic those predators perfectly. A small fish that would normally ignore you will flee in terror when you transform into a snake eel, your body stretching long and thin as you glide across the bottom. The mimicry comes naturally, but perfecting it takes practice. You spend hours watching other creatures, studying their movements, their postures, their ways of interacting with the world. A soulfish lies flat against the sand with its eyes bulging upward. You learn to do the same, sinking into the substrate until only your eyes remain visible. A mantis shrimp darts backward into its burrow when threatened. You master that motion too, using it to escape into crevices when larger predators appear. But the ocean floor isn't just a hunting ground, it's also a battlefield. Everything down here is trying to eat something else, and you're still small enough to be on plenty of menus. Moray eels patrol the reef with their mouths slightly open, revealing needle-sharp teeth. Rays glide overhead like underwater birds of prey, their eyes scanning for movement below. Even other octopuses pose a threat, especially the larger species that wouldn't hesitate to make a meal of you. Your first real encounter with danger comes from an unexpected source. You're hunting near a coral outcropping when the water around you suddenly darkens. You look up to see a massive shape blocking the light. A stingray, its wingspan easily 10 times your arm span. It's not hunting you specifically, it's just looking for food buried in the sand, but if it decides you're edible, there's nowhere to run. Panic floods through you, but then instinct takes over. Your body flattens against the seafloor, and your skin shifts to match the sand perfectly. But that's not enough. The ray is too close, and its senses are too sharp. You need something more dramatic. In desperation, you stretch your body long and thin, pressing 6 of your arms together while extending the other 2. Your skin develops a pattern of dark and light bands. You've become a snake. The ray pauses, hovering just above you. Rays eat all sorts of things, but venomous sea snakes aren't usually on the menu. It watches you for a long moment, perhaps trying to decide if you're worth the risk. Then, apparently concluding that you're not, it glides away to hunt elsewhere. You hold the snake disguise until the ray disappears completely, then slowly return to your normal form. Your hearts are racing. Yes, hearts plural, because you have 3 of them. The encounter was terrifying, but it was also a revelation. Your mimicry isn't just clever camouflage, it's a survival tool that can fool even large predators. Word spreads quickly through the reef when you perfect a new disguise, not literally, of course, but your reputation as something unpredictable grows among the local predators. They've learned to be cautious around areas where you hunt, never quite sure what they're looking at. Your confidence builds with each successful transformation. A lionfish approaches, its venomous spines fanned out in warning. Most creatures give lionfish plenty of space, but you see opportunity. You spread your arms wide and arch your back, creating the same threatening display. Your skin erupts in the same red and white stripes, complete with the flowing ribbon-like movement of the lionfish's fins. The real lionfish pauses, confused by this mirror image, then swims away to find less complicated hunting grounds. But mimicry isn't just about avoiding predators, it's also about catching prey. You discover that some creatures are naturally curious about their own kind. A small grouper swims past, and you quickly shift into grouper mode, matching its mottled brown coloration and the way it hovers near the reef. The real grouper circles back, apparently intrigued by this newcomer. It approaches cautiously, and when it gets close enough, you strike. Your arms shoot out faster than it can react, wrapping around its body before it understands what's happening. The grouper struggles, its fins beating frantically, but your grip is unbreakable. Your beak finds the back of its head, delivering a quick, merciful bite that ends the fight instantly. It's your largest meal yet, enough protein to fuel days of growth. As you get bigger, your hunting territory expands. You venture further from the safety of the reef into more open areas where the real predators hunt. Sand flats stretch out like underwater deserts, broken only by occasional rocks or patches of seagrass. This is dangerous territory, but it's also rich with opportunity. A flounder glides past, its flat body perfectly adapted for life on the bottom. You've seen flounders before, but this time you really study its movement, the way it undulates its entire body to swim, how it settles onto the sand with both eyes facing upward. Within minutes, you've mastered the technique. Your body flattens until you're paper thin, and you glide across the bottom with the same graceful motion. Your skin shifts to match the flounder's sandy coloration, complete with the scattered dark spots. The disguise is so perfect that you accidentally fool yourself. When you settle onto the sand, you almost expect to feel the weight of a flounder's skeletal structure, the sensation of fins instead of arms. But you're still an octopus underneath it all, still thinking with that remarkable brain that makes all of this possible. A crab scuttles nearby, its claws clicking against the sand as it searches for food. Crabs are always good eaten, but they're also well defended and quick to flee. This one is particularly large, with claws that could easily tear off one of your arms. But you have a plan. You begin your transformation slowly, pulling 6 of your arms tight against your body while extending the other 2. Your skin hardens and develops the segmented texture of a snake's scales. Dark bands appear along your length, the classic warning coloration of a banded sea snake. You lift your head, actually the tip of one arm, and sway it back and forth with the hypnotic motion of a serpent. The crab freezes. Sea snakes are among the most venomous creatures in the ocean, and this crab knows it. But instead of fleeing immediately, it tries to back away slowly, keeping its claws raised defensively. That's exactly what you were hoping for. You glide forward with perfect snake-like motion, your false head weaving from side to side. The crab's attention is completely focused on what it thinks is a deadly predator approaching head-on. It never notices your real head, hidden among the coils of your disguised body, sliding around to attack from behind. When you strike, it's with lightning speed. Your real arms burst from concealment, wrapping around the crab's shell before it can react. The poor creature probably never figured out what hit it. One moment it was facing down a sea snake, the next it was being crushed in the grip of an octopus. But your success attracts attention. A shadow passes overhead, and you look up to see a shape that makes your blood run cold. It's a shark, not a massive one, but easily large enough to swallow you whole. Its dead black eyes scan the seafloor, searching for movement, for anything that might indicate prey. You freeze completely, still wrapped around the crab. Your skin immediately shifts to match the sand beneath you, but you know that might not be enough. Sharks have senses beyond just vision. They can detect electrical fields, vibrations, even the faintest trace of blood in the water. And you've just killed a crab, which means there's definitely blood. The shark circles lower, its movements lazy but purposeful. It's not in a hurry, which somehow makes it more terrifying. A panicked predator might miss you, but this one has all the time in the world to investigate anything suspicious. Your mind races through possibilities. You could try to mimic a ray, flattening yourself completely and hoping the shark mistakes you for something too large to bother with. You could become a sea snake again, Those sharks are known to eat those too, or you could try something completely different. The shark makes another pass, this time close enough that you can see the rows of teeth in its slightly open mouth. That's when inspiration strikes. You've never tried this before, but there's a first time for everything. You begin to change, but not into another animal. Instead, you transform into something the shark would never think to investigate, a piece of the reef itself. Your skin develops the rough, bumpy texture of coral, complete with the subtle color variations and the small polyps that make living coral so distinctive. You spread your arms wide and hold them rigid, creating the branching structure of a coral head. The disguise is so complete that small fish actually begin to shelter among your arms, apparently fooled into thinking you're the real thing. Their presence only makes the illusion more convincing. The shark glides past, its eyes passing right over you without a flicker of interest. To its senses, you're just another piece of the reef, as inedible and uninteresting as a rock. You hold the disguise long after the shark disappears, partly from caution and partly from amazement at what you've just accomplished. You didn't just mimic another animal, you became part of the environment itself. The possibilities this opens up are staggering. As weeks turn to months, your repertoire of disguises grows ever more sophisticated. You learn to mimic not just the appearance of other creatures, but their behaviors, their hunting techniques, even their social interactions. When a school of fish approaches, you can blend in so perfectly that they accept you as one of their own, at least until you decide to eat one of them. Your brain develops new connections with each transformation. The neural pathways that control your chromatophores become more complex, more responsive. You can shift from one disguise to another in seconds, sometimes cycling through multiple forms in a single hunt. A crab might see a flounder approaching, then a sea snake, then suddenly find itself in the grip of an octopus that seemed to materialize from nowhere. But with greater skill comes greater danger. Your hunting territory overlaps with that of larger predators, and they're starting to notice that something unusual is happening in their domain. Fish are disappearing in ways that don't make sense. Prey animals are acting strangely, approaching predators they should flee from, or fleeing from creatures that should be harmless. A large grouper has been patrolling the same section of reef for years. It knows every rock, every coral formation, every hiding spot where prey might shelter. So when it sees what appears to be a small octopus hiding in a crevice, it doesn't hesitate to investigate. Easy meal, right? But as it approaches, the octopus begins to change. Its skin shifts from the mottled browns and grays of camouflage to the bright warning colors of something far more dangerous. Yellow and black stripes appear along its body, and its posture changes, becoming more aggressive, more threatening. The grouper has seen these colors before, on mantis shrimp, those heavily armored crustaceans with clubs for fists that can shatter shells and crack aquarium glass. The last thing any sensible fish wants is a confrontation with a mantis shrimp. The grouper backs off, looking for easier prey elsewhere. You hold the mantis shrimp disguise until the grouper is gone, then allow yourself a moment of satisfaction. The transformation was perfect, complete down to the way mantis shrimp hold their powerful clubs at the ready. But more than that, it was tactical. You read the situation, identified what the grouper feared most, and became that fear. Your success, however, hasn't gone unnoticed. There are eyes watching from the shadows of the reef, intelligent eyes that belong to something far more dangerous than any shark or grouper. Another octopus, but not like you. This one is larger, older, with scars along its arms that speak of countless battles. It's been watching your hunts, studying your techniques, and it's decided that your territory would make a fine addition to its own. The confrontation comes without warning. You're pursuing a small fish through a coral maze when suddenly the water around you erupts in a cloud of ink. Through the murky darkness, you see arms reaching for you, thick, powerful arms lined with suckers that could crush your bones if you had any. You react instinctively, jetting backward with a powerful blast from your siphon. The larger octopus follows, its arms streaming behind it as it gives chase. It's faster than you expected, closing the distance with frightening speed. Those scarred arms aren't just for show. This is a predator that survived long enough to grow huge by being very, very good at killing other octopuses. Fleeing won't work. Your pursuer knows these waters as well as you do, and it has the advantage of size and experience. Fighting directly would be suicide. Those arms could tear you apart. But you have something it doesn't, the ability to become anything you want. As the larger octopus closes in for the kill, you make a desperate transformation. Your body stretches long and thin, your skin taking on the distinctive black and yellow bands of a sea snake, but not just any sea snake. You become the most venomous species you've ever encountered, complete with the aggressive posturing and threat display that even large predators respect. The attacking octopus pulls up short, its arms recoiling from what appears to be a deadly serpent. But it's old and experienced, and after a moment's hesitation, it begins to circle you warily. It might not be entirely convinced by your disguise. You hold the snake form perfectly, weaving your false head back and forth in the mesmerizing pattern of a hunting serpent. Your skin displays the precise coloration and banding that marks you as lethally venomous. But you can see intelligence in your opponent's eyes, the same intelligence that makes all octopuses such formidable predators. The standoff stretches on, neither of you willing to make the first move. Then slowly, the larger octopus begins to back away. Perhaps it decides that the risk isn't worth it, or perhaps it simply has better things to do than fight a sea snake. Either way, it disappears into the reef, leaving you alone with your racing hearts and the knowledge that you've just survived an encounter that should have killed you. But survival is just the beginning. As you grow larger and more confident, your world expands beyond the immediate reef. The ocean floor stretches endlessly in all directions, a vast landscape of opportunity and danger. You're no longer the tiny, vulnerable creature that first descended from the plankton. Your arms span nearly a foot now, and your brain has developed connections that would put most vertebrates to shame. Your hunting grounds now encompass multiple coral heads, sandy flats, and rocky outcroppings. Each environment demands different skills, different disguises. In the coral, you become part of the living reef itself, your skin matching the intricate patterns of polyps and algae. On the sand flats, you transform into bottom-dwelling fish or buried invertebrates. Among the rocks, you can become a piece of the substrate itself, complete with the texture of weathered stone and the subtle movements of sea anemones. But it's not just about hiding anymore. You've discovered that your mimicry can be a weapon of psychological warfare. When a territorial damselfish charges at you, aggressively defending its small patch of algae, you don't flee. Instead, you become something the damselfish has never seen before, a creature from the deep ocean with bioluminescent patterns that pulse and shift across your skin. The damselfish stops dead in the water, its tiny brain struggling to process this impossible sight. By the time it recovers, you've already moved on to hunt elsewhere. Your intelligence grows with your body. You begin to use tools, not just as weapons, but as props in elaborate deceptions. A discarded shell becomes part of a hermit crab disguise so convincing that real hermit crabs approach you as potential mates. A piece of drifting seaweed transforms you into a leafy sea dragon, your arms moving with the same hypnotic sway as the creature's elaborate appendages. The most challenging prey requires the most creative solutions. A mantis shrimp has taken up residence in a rocky crevice, its powerful claws capable of delivering blows with the force of a bullet. Most predators give mantis shrimp a wide berth, but you see only opportunity. You can't approach as yourself. Those compound eyes would spot you instantly. You can't mimic another mantis shrimp. They're fiercely territorial and would attack immediately. Instead, you become something unexpected, a cleaning station. Your skin develops the pale coloration and swaying movements of a sea anemone, complete with tentacle-like projections formed by your arm tips. Fish often visit anemones to have parasites removed, and mantis shrimp, despite their aggressive nature, sometimes use these services too. The mantis shrimp watches suspiciously as you establish your false cleaning station nearby. Its club-like appendages twitch nervously, ready to strike at the first sign of deception. But your performance is flawless. Small fish actually begin to visit you, apparently convinced by your anemone disguise. Their presence adds credibility to the illusion. Finally, the mantis shrimp's need for grooming overcomes its caution. It approaches slowly, keeping its weapons ready, but allowing some of your disguised arm tips to brush against its carapace. The moment you feel contact, you strike. Your real arms explode from concealment, wrapping around the mantis shrimp's body before it can bring its devastating clubs to bear. The struggle is brief but violent. The mantis shrimp's clubs hammer against your arms, each blow powerful enough to crack shells. But you've positioned yourself carefully, keeping your vital organs away from those deadly weapons. Your grip tightens, and your beak finds the gap between the creature's head and thorax. It's over. As you feed on your prize, you notice movement in the distance. A group of fish approaches, not the usual small prey species, but something larger and more organized. They move in formation, their silver sides flashing in coordination. It's a hunting party of jacks, predators that work together to corner schools of smaller fish. Most octopuses would hide from such a group, but you see potential. Jacks are social hunters, and social hunters can be infiltrated. You begin your transformation, your body taking on the streamlined shape and silver coloration of the approaching fish. Your arms press tight against your body, creating the illusion of fins, while your skin develops the same reflective quality that helps jacks confuse their prey. The deception works perfectly. The jacks accept you as one of their own, allowing you to swim alongside them as they search for prey. You match their movements exactly, the subtle banking turns, the way they spread out to cover more water, even the aggressive posturing they display when they spot potential targets. When the jacks finally locate a school of smaller fish, you participate in the hunt with perfect synchronization. The jacks spread out in a circle, gradually tightening their formation to trap the prey in the center. You do the same, your disguise so complete that even you begin to feel like part of the pack. But when the feeding frenzy begins, you reveal your true nature. While the jacks snap at individual fish with their jaws, you explode outward with all 8 arms, creating a net that captures multiple prey at once. The jacks are too focused on their own hunting to notice that one of their number has suddenly developed tentacles. You peel away from the group while they're still feeding, your arms full of fresh fish. It's a hunting technique that no other octopus has ever attempted, infiltrating a pack of social predators and turning their own cooperation against them. Your reputation as something unusual continues to grow. Predators that once hunted confidently in these waters now move with caution, never quite sure what they're looking at. Is that grouper really a grouper? Is that flounder actually a flounder? The uncertainty creates gaps in their hunting behavior, gaps you're quick to exploit. A large moray eel has been terrorizing the reef for months, its serpentine body perfectly adapted for hunting in tight spaces. Most creatures flee when they catch even a glimpse of its distinctive spotted pattern, but you see opportunity where others see only death. When the eel emerges from its rocky lair to hunt, you're ready. Your transformation is instant and complete. You become a second moray eel, matching not just the appearance, but the sinuous swimming motion and aggressive posture. The real eel stops, confused by this apparent rival in its territory. Moray eels are solitary creatures, fiercely territorial, and the presence of another eel in its domain triggers an immediate threat response. The real eel spreads its jaws wide, displaying rows of needle-sharp teeth in a clear warning. You respond in kind, your disguised head opening to reveal what appears to be an identical threat display. What follows is a tense standoff between two predators, except one of them isn't what it appears to be. The real eel circles warily, trying to assess this unexpected rival. Its body language speaks of confusion and growing aggression. It's not used to backing down from confrontations, but it's also not used to encountering equals in these waters. You maintain the deception perfectly, matching every movement, every threat display, every subtle shift in posture. But your real goal isn't to fight, it's to misdirect. While the eel's attention is focused on what it believes is your head, your actual head approaches from a completely different angle. The strike comes without warning. Your real arms wrap around the eel's midsection while it's still focused on your false threat display. The eel thrashes violently, its powerful body capable of crushing most opponents, but you've chosen your grip point carefully. You're positioned where the eel can't bring its jaws to bear, and your distributed grip prevents it from building up the leverage it needs to break free. The battle is fierce, but brief. The eel's struggles gradually weaken as your grip tightens. Your beak finds the base of its skull, delivering a precise bite that ends the fight instantly. You've just killed one of the reef's apex predators, using nothing but deception and intelligence. But victory comes with consequences. The eel's death sends ripples through the reef's ecosystem. Other predators move in to claim the vacant territory, and the balance of power shifts in ways you couldn't have anticipated. A group of sharks begins patrolling the area more frequently, drawn by the scent of blood and the prospect of easy scavenging. Your presence hasn't gone unnoticed. The sharks have primitive brains compared to yours, but they're not stupid. They've begun to associate this area with unusual hunting activity, prey disappearing in impossible ways, predators behaving strangely, the normal order of things disrupted by something they can't quite identify. One afternoon, while you're hunting near the edge of your territory, you notice something that makes your skin crawl with patterns of pure alarm. The water above you has taken on a different quality, darker, more oppressive. You look up to see a sight that would terrify any creature of the reef. A massive shape moving across the surface, blocking out the sun. It's a ship, but not just any ship. The hull is scarred and patched, and strange equipment dangles from its sides into the water. You've never seen anything like it, but every instinct screams danger. The vibrations from its engines penetrate deep into the water, a low thrumming that seems to resonate in your bones. Then you see them, divers descending from the ship, their artificial forms encased in strange shells and breathing through mechanical gills. They move with purpose, scanning the reef with devices that emit clicking sounds and flashing lights. They're searching for something, and their search pattern is methodical, professional. You press yourself against the seafloor and activate your most complete camouflage, becoming indistinguishable from the sandy bottom. But the diver's equipment is more sophisticated than natural senses. One of them stops directly above you, his scanning device beeping rapidly. Through the face mask, you can see eyes that are intelligent, calculating, dangerous. The diver signals to his companion, and both begin to descend toward your position. Panic floods through your system, but you force yourself to remain motionless. Your camouflage is perfect. To any natural predator, you would be invisible, but these aren't natural predators, and their technology sees things that eyes cannot. As the divers approach, you make a desperate decision. If camouflage won't work, perhaps misdirection will. You begin to shift your form, not into another sea creature, but into something the divers would never think to investigate closely, a piece of their own equipment. Your skin takes on the metallic sheen of their diving gear, complete with the reflection patterns and artificial textures. Your arms arrange themselves into the angular shapes of machinery, creating the illusion of a piece of equipment that might have fallen from their ship. It's a desperate gambit, unlike any transformation you've ever attempted. The lead diver pauses, his scanning device now silent. He examines what appears to be a damaged piece of underwater equipment, half buried in the sand. His companion joins him, and they spend several minutes discussing the find. Through their artificial breathing apparatus, you can hear muffled voices, but the meaning is lost to you. Finally, apparently deciding that the object isn't what they're looking for, the divers move on. They continue their systematic search of the reef, their devices clicking and flashing as they scan for whatever brought them here. You maintain your mechanical disguise until their lights disappear into the distance, then slowly return to your natural form. The encounter leaves you shaken in ways you've never experienced. These surface dwellers represent something entirely outside your understanding, intelligence that rivals your own, but coupled with technology that makes them nearly omnipotent in the water. They're not part of the reef's natural order, and their presence suggests that your world is larger and more dangerous than you ever imagined. In the days that follow, you notice other signs of their influence. Strange sounds echo through the water at odd intervals. The distant rumble of engines, the ping of sonar systems, the occasional splash of objects being dropped from the surface. The reef's natural rhythms are being disrupted by forces beyond your comprehension. Your hunting patterns begin to change in response to this new threat. You avoid the areas where the divers were most active, sticking to deeper waters and more complex terrain where their equipment might be less effective. Your disguises become more elaborate, incorporating not just natural forms, but artificial elements. The metallic glints of human debris, the angular lines of sunken equipment, but adaptation is what you do best. Within weeks, you've developed new hunting strategies that take advantage of the changing environment. The human activity has disturbed many of the reef's inhabitants, driving them into unfamiliar territory where they're easier to ambush. Schools of fish that once moved in predictable patterns now dart erratically, trying to avoid the strange noises from above. You learn to use the human's own technology against them. When their sonar pulses through the water, you time your strikes to coincide with the sound, using the acoustic interference to mask your approach. When their lights sweep across the reef at night, you position yourself in the shadows they create, becoming part of the darkness between illuminated areas. Your intelligence continues to evolve, developing new connections and capabilities in response to these unprecedented challenges. You begin to understand concepts that no octopus has ever needed to grasp. The difference between natural and artificial sounds, the patterns of mechanical behavior versus biological behavior, the way technology can be both a threat and a tool. The reef around you is changing too. Some areas have been disturbed by human activity, their natural structures altered or damaged, but life adapts, and new opportunities emerge from the chaos. Fish that lost their traditional hiding spots become easier prey. Invertebrates displaced from their usual habitats wander into your territory. The disruption that threatens some aspects of your world creates advantages in others. Your territory now spans a vast area of the reef, far larger than any octopus has ever controlled. You've become something unprecedented, a master of deception capable of fooling not just natural predators, but artificial intelligence as well. Your mimicry has evolved beyond simple camouflage into something approaching art, each transformation a masterpiece of biological theater. But with greater territory comes greater responsibility. You're no longer just a solitary hunter. You've become a keystone species, your presence influencing the behavior of countless other creatures. Prey animals have learned to fear shadows that might not be what they seem. Predators have grown cautious, never certain that their intended targets are actually what they appear to be. The complexity of your mental world continues to expand. You don't just react to threats and opportunities anymore. You plan for them, anticipate them, create them. Your brain has developed the capacity for abstract thought, for understanding relationships and consequences that extend far beyond immediate survival needs. Yet for all your intelligence and adaptability, you remain fundamentally alone. Other octopuses avoid your territory, perhaps sensing that you're different in ways they can't comprehend. You've transcended the normal patterns of your species, becoming something unique in the ocean's long history. The isolation doesn't trouble you. Solitude is the natural state of your kind. But sometimes, in quiet moments between hunts, you find yourself aware of your own uniqueness in ways that approach self-consciousness. You are the only creature in the ocean capable of becoming any other creature at will. You are evolution's masterpiece of deception, intelligence incarnate in a form soft enough to squeeze through the tiniest cracks, yet powerful enough to kill predators twice your size. Your story is far from over. The ocean stretches endlessly in all directions, full of creatures you've never encountered, challenges you've never faced, transformations you've never attempted. Each day brings new opportunities to test the limits of what's possible, to push the boundaries of mimicry into realms that no other creature has ever explored. The months pass, and your body continues to grow. Your arms now span nearly 2 feet, and your weight has increased tenfold since you first settled on the reef. But it's not just your physical form that's expanding. Your mental capabilities are reaching levels that would be impossible for most creatures to comprehend. You've begun to dream, if that's what you can call the strange patterns of neural activity that occur when you rest. Images of past hunts, future possibilities, and impossible transformations flicker through your consciousness like underwater movies. Your hunting techniques have evolved beyond simple mimicry into elaborate psychological warfare. A school of surgeonfish has been feeding peacefully on algae when you appear among them, perfectly matching their blue and yellow coloration. But instead of attacking immediately, you begin to behave strangely, twitching, jerking, displaying the erratic movements of a sick or infected fish. The school's reaction is immediate and predictable. They scatter, abandoning their feeding ground to avoid whatever disease you appear to carry. Once they're gone, you drop the act and settle in to feed on the algae they left behind. But your greatest challenge yet approaches from the darkness beyond the reef. The water trembles with a sound you've never heard before, deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat, but impossibly large. Something massive is moving through the depths, something that makes the water itself shiver with its passage. You've encountered large predators before, but this feels different, ancient, primordial. The creature that emerges from the abyss defies comprehension. It's a giant Pacific octopus, but one that has lived far longer than any of its kind should. Its arms stretch over 30 feet in each direction, scarred by decades of battles you can't imagine. Its eyes are clouded with age, but they hold an intelligence that makes your own remarkable brain seem juvenile by comparison. This is what you could become, given time and survival, but it's also what you must face right now. So, the ancient octopus doesn't attack immediately. Instead, it settles onto the reef like a living mountain, its massive arms rearranging the landscape simply by moving. Rocks shift, coral breaks, sand billows in clouds that turn the water murky. When it finally acknowledges your presence, it's with something that might almost be amusement. To this creature, you're nothing more than a curious anomaly, interesting perhaps, but hardly a threat. You know you can't fight this monster directly. Your best weapons, speed, intelligence, and deception, seem laughably inadequate against something this massive. But you also know that every creature, no matter how large, has weaknesses. The ancient octopus's size works against it in some ways. It's slow to turn, slow to react, and its bulk makes it dependent on finding large sources of food. Your strategy forms with desperate creativity. Instead of fleeing or hiding, you begin the most ambitious transformation of your life. You don't become another creature, you become an environment. Your skin takes on the mottled colors and textures of diseased coral, the kind that releases toxins into the water. Your arms spread wide and hold rigid, creating the appearance of a coral formation in the advanced stages of bleaching and death. The ancient octopus examines your disguise with those clouded eyes, its massive arms probing the water for chemical signals. You're betting everything on the hope that a creature this old has learned to avoid diseased coral, that its survival instincts will override its curiosity. For long minutes, the standoff continues. The giant's arms wave slowly through the water, testing, considering. Then, with movements that shake the entire reef, the ancient octopus begins to withdraw. Perhaps it decides that the risk isn't worth investigating, or perhaps it simply has more important things to do. Either way, it disappears back into the depths, leaving you alone with your racing hearts and the knowledge that you've just survived an encounter with something truly primordial. But the experience changes you in ways you don't immediately understand. The ancient octopus represented something you'd never considered before, your own future, stretched out across years you can barely comprehend. For the first time, you begin to think beyond immediate survival, beyond the next hunt or the next transformation. You begin to think about time itself. The reef around you holds evidence of countless lives that came before, shells of creatures long dead, coral formations built over centuries, sediment layers that speak of ages beyond counting. You're part of something larger than yourself, larger than your remarkable abilities. You're a single note in a symphony that's been playing since the oceans first formed. This realization brings with it a new kind of intelligence, not just the tactical brilliance you've always possessed, but something approaching wisdom. Your hunts become more efficient, more purposeful. You waste less energy on unnecessary displays, focus more on sustainable patterns that won't disrupt the reef's delicate balance. You're no longer just a predator, you're becoming a steward of your environment, Your mimicry takes on new dimensions as well. You begin to imitate not just individual creatures, but entire ecosystems. Your skin becomes a living map of the reef, complete with the subtle movements of anemones, the flickering of small fish, the gentle sway of seaweed in the current. Fish approach this false reef as if it were real, seeking shelter among what they believe are familiar surroundings. The deception is so complete that you sometimes lose yourself in it. Hours pass while you maintain the ecosystem disguise, your consciousness distributed across multiple false forms. You experience something approaching what humans might call meditation, a state of being where the boundaries between self and environment begin to blur. During one of these sessions, you notice something extraordinary happening. Small fish have begun to actually nest among your disguised arms, apparently convinced that you're a genuine part of the reef. Their eggs cluster in the folds of your skin, and they defend their nests with the fierce determination of any parent. You find yourself protecting them in return, adjusting your position to shield their eggs from predators, modifying your coloration to provide better camouflage for their young. It's a symbiotic relationship that shouldn't be possible, a deception so perfect that it becomes reality. The fish gain protection and shelter, while you gain the perfect cover for your own hunting activities. Predators see a thriving ecosystem and assume it's too well established to disturb. Your presence becomes not just camouflage, but an actual contribution to the reef's biodiversity. As your territory expands, you encounter other mimic octopuses, members of your own species, attempting their own versions of the transformations you've perfected. But their efforts seem crude by comparison, simple mimicry where you've achieved artistry. They can copy the appearance of a flatfish or sea snake, but they lack the psychological insight that makes your deceptions truly convincing. One young male approaches your territory with what he probably considers impressive mimicry, a passable imitation of a lionfish that might fool casual observers. But you see through it immediately, recognizing the subtle tells that mark him as an imposter. His spine positioning is slightly wrong, his fin movements too mechanical, his threat display lacking the natural aggression of the real thing. Rather than driving him off, you do something unprecedented. You teach him. Through a series of demonstrations, you show him how to perfect his lionfish disguise. The proper spine angles, the flowing movement of the fins, the precise coloration patterns that make the mimicry truly convincing. It's the first time you've shared knowledge with another of your kind, and the interaction awakens something you didn't know you possessed, the capacity for mentorship. The young male is a quick learner, absorbing your lessons with impressive speed. Within days, his lionfish disguise has improved dramatically, but more importantly, he's learned the principles behind effective mimicry, the need to understand not just appearance, but behavior, psychology, the entire context in which a creature exists. Word spreads through the octopus community in ways you don't fully understand. Perhaps it's chemical signals or subtle behavioral cues. But somehow other members of your species learn that there's something different about your territory. They begin to approach, not to challenge you, but to learn from you. Your role evolves again. You become not just a predator or a steward, but a teacher. Young octopuses arrive seeking knowledge, and you find yourself developing new methods of communication. Through color changes, posture shifts, and carefully choreographed demonstrations, you pass on the secrets of advanced mimicry. But teaching comes with risks. Each student you train becomes a potential competitor, armed with knowledge that could threaten your dominance. Some of your pupils do eventually challenge you, testing their newly acquired skills against your mastery. These confrontations become elaborate contests of deception, duels fought not with physical strength, but with pure artistry. In one memorable encounter, a former student approaches your territory disguised as yourself. The mimicry is nearly perfect. Your exact coloration, your distinctive movement patterns, even your preferred hunting postures. For a moment, you're faced with what appears to be your own reflection, a mirror image that shouldn't exist. The psychological impact is profound. You've spent your entire life being the deceiver, never the deceived. Seeing your own form copied with such precision forces you to confront questions about identity that you've never considered. If another creature can become you so completely, what makes you unique? What separates the original from the copy? The answer comes to you with surprising clarity: experience. Your student may have mastered your appearance, but they lack the thousands of hunts, the countless transformations, the deep understanding of the reef's rhythms that inform every movement you make. When you begin your counter-deception, it's with a sophistication they can't match. You become something your student has never seen, a hybrid form that combines elements from multiple creatures in ways that shouldn't be possible. Part mantis shrimp, part moray eel, part stingray, all blended into a single, impossible entity that exists only in your imagination. Your student's mimicry crumbles in the face of this unprecedented display, their borrowed confidence evaporating as they realize the gulf that still separates student from master. But you don't press your advantage. Instead, you shift back to your natural form and approach peacefully. The lesson isn't about dominance. It's about the endless possibilities that exist when mimicry transcends simple imitation and becomes true creativity. Your student retreats, but not in defeat. In their eyes, you see the spark of inspiration, the recognition that they've witnessed something beyond their current capabilities. Your reputation spreads beyond the octopus community. Other species begin to exhibit unusual behaviors in your presence. Not fear exactly, but a kind of respectful wariness. They've learned that nothing in your territory is quite what it seems, that the normal rules of predator and prey don't apply when dealing with a creature that can become anything at will. A group of dolphins discovers your territory during one of their hunting expeditions. These are intelligent creatures, perhaps the only other species in the ocean that approaches your level of cognitive sophistication. They're immediately intrigued by the strange reports they've heard about this area: fish behaving oddly, predators showing unusual caution, sightings of creatures that shouldn't exist. The dolphins begin to investigate with the systematic approach of natural scientists. They explore every corner of your territory, documenting the unusual behaviors they observe. When they finally encounter you directly, it's during one of your most elaborate performances, a transformation that cycles through multiple forms in rapid succession, creating a living light show of changing colors and shapes. The dolphins watch in fascination, their sonar painting detailed pictures of your metamorphosis. They chatter among themselves in their complex language, apparently debating what they're witnessing. Then, in a gesture that surprises you, they begin to mimic your performance, not physically, as they lack your shape-changing abilities, but acoustically. Their clicks and whistles take on new patterns, creating sound pictures that mirror your visual transformations. It's a form of artistic collaboration you never expected. Two entirely different forms of intelligence, finding common ground in the appreciation of complexity and beauty. The encounter with the dolphins marks another evolution in your consciousness. You begin to understand that intelligence takes many forms, that your abilities are just one expression of the ocean's vast creativity. The dolphin's echolocation, reveals details about your transformations that you never considered, the way your internal structure shifts during mimicry, the patterns of muscle contraction that create different textures, the precise timing required to maintain complex disguises. Their observations help you refine your techniques even further. You learn to control aspects of your transformations that you previously handled unconsciously, gaining new levels of precision and artistry. Your disguises become so sophisticated that they begin to influence the behavior of entire ecosystems, schools of fish altering their migration patterns to avoid or approach what they believe are certain types of predators or shelter. But the dolphins also bring news from the wider ocean, reports of changes happening far beyond your reef. The surface world is becoming more active, with increasing numbers of ships and divers exploring the depths. The humans' technology is advancing rapidly, their ability to detect and study marine life growing more sophisticated each year. Some of your dolphin visitors carry scars from encounters with human equipment, nets, propellers, experimental devices whose purpose remains mysterious. Their stories paint a picture of an ocean under increasing pressure from above, a world where the ancient patterns of life are being disrupted by forces that operate on timescales far different from natural rhythms. You begin to prepare for a future that may require abilities beyond even your remarkable skills. The humans represent a challenge unlike any predator you've faced: intelligent, tool-using, capable of altering their environment on a massive scale. If they ever focus their attention specifically on your reef, your survival may depend on deceptions more elaborate than any you've yet attempted. Your training regimen intensifies. You practice mimicking not just natural creatures, but artificial objects, pieces of human technology, geometric shapes that don't exist in nature, even abstract patterns that have no biological equivalent. Your brain develops new neural pathways to handle these unprecedented challenges, connections that no octopus has ever needed before. The reef itself becomes your laboratory. You experiment with large-scale deceptions, creating false environments that span entire sections of the seabed. From above, these areas appear to be barren sand or uninteresting rock formations, but hidden beneath your illusions lie complex ecosystems teeming with life, underwater cities that exist only because of your ability to make them invisible. Your influence on the reef's evolution becomes profound. Species that should be extinct thrive under your protection, hidden by deceptions that make them appear to be something else entirely. Rare corals grow in areas that seem too hostile to support them, camouflaged by your mimicry to look like common varieties that humans wouldn't think to study or collect. You've become more than a predator, more than a teacher, more than a steward. You're an active force in evolution itself, using your intelligence and abilities to guide the development of entire ecosystems. The reef under your influence is becoming something new, a hybrid of natural processes and conscious design that exists nowhere else in the ocean. But with this power comes a growing sense of isolation. Your consciousness has expanded far beyond what any octopus was meant to experience. You think in concepts that have no names, dream in patterns that exist only in your imagination, feel emotions that no other creature could understand. You've transcended the normal boundaries of your species so completely that you've become something entirely new. Late at night, when the reef settles into its nocturnal rhythms, you sometimes allow yourself to drop all disguises and simply be yourself. But even then, you're not sure what that means anymore. Are you the creature that was born from an egg on this reef, or are you the sum of all the forms you've taken? Are you defined by your original nature, or by the limitless possibilities you've discovered within yourself? The questions have no easy answers, but perhaps that's the point. You've evolved beyond the need for simple definitions, beyond the constraints that limit other creatures. You are possibility incarnate, intelligence freed from the boundaries of form, creativity given flesh and will and purpose. The ocean stretches endlessly around you, full of wonders you've yet to discover and challenges you've yet to face. Your story is far from over. In many ways, it's just beginning. Each day brings new opportunities to explore the limits of what's possible, to push the boundaries of mimicry and intelligence into realms that evolution never intended, but that consciousness has made inevitable. You are the future of your species, the next step in an evolutionary journey that began billions of years ago in the primordial seas. And as you drift through the warm waters of your reef, surrounded by the life you've helped to shape and protect, you know that whatever comes next, you'll meet it with the one weapon that has never failed you: the infinite adaptability of a mind that refuses to accept limitations. As you mature into your second year, your body undergoes changes that go beyond simple growth. Your skin develops new layers of chromatophores, creating color possibilities that would make a rainbow seem dull by comparison. But more importantly, your brain continues its relentless expansion, forming connections at a rate that would be impossible in most creatures. You're not just getting smarter, you're developing entirely new forms of intelligence. The reef has become your canvas, and you paint with life itself. A barren patch of seafloor transforms under your influence into what appears to be a thriving coral garden. Fish gather around your false formations, seeking shelter that technically doesn't exist. But their presence makes the illusion real, creating actual ecosystems where none should be possible. You've learned to think in geological time, planning deceptions that will take months to fully develop. Your hunting strategies have evolved into something approaching performance art. A group of parrotfish grazes peacefully on algae when you appear among them, perfectly mimicking their distinctive beak-like mouths and rainbow coloration. But instead of attacking, you begin to exhibit signs of extreme agitation, the kind of behavior parrotfish display when they've discovered something dangerous. Your false alarm calls spread through the school like wildfire. They scatter in panic, abandoning prime feeding territory that you then claim for yourself. It's psychological warfare at its finest, using their own instincts against them. But your greatest achievement isn't in hunting, it's in creation. Deep in your territory lies something that shouldn't exist, a nursery for creatures that have no business being there. Through careful manipulation of water flow and strategic placement of your disguises, you've created microclimates that allow tropical species to survive in temperate waters. Young fish that should have died in the cold currents thrive under your protection, hidden by illusions that make their environment appear hostile to potential threats. The complexity of maintaining these false ecosystems pushes your mental abilities to new limits. You must simultaneously track dozens of different species, monitor environmental conditions, adjust your disguises to changing circumstances, and continue your own hunting activities. It's like conducting an orchestra where every instrument is alive and capable of independent thought. Your reputation has spread far beyond the local waters. Marine biologists working hundreds of miles away report unusual sightings that match creatures from your reef, impossible combinations of species that shouldn't exist, behaviors that contradict established scientific understanding. They don't know about you, but your influence ripples outward through the ocean in ways you never intended. A research vessel arrives in your waters, bristling with equipment you've never seen before. The humans aboard are different from the casual divers who occasionally visit. These are professionals, armed with technology that can see through water as if it were glass, detect electrical fields from vast distances, and record sounds at frequencies beyond your perception. They're hunting for something specific, and their systematic approach suggests they won't give up easily. You watch them from the depths as they deploy their instruments. Hydrophones sink into the water like artificial ears, listening for sounds that might reveal your presence. Underwater cameras sweep the reef with mechanical precision, recording everything for later analysis. Most disturbing of all are the biological samplers, devices designed to collect tissue samples from any creature they encounter. For the first time in your life, you face an enemy that might actually be smarter than you are. Not individually, no single human possesses your cognitive abilities, but collectively, their species has accumulated knowledge and technology that represents millions of years of intellectual evolution compressed into a few thousand years of civilization. They know things about the ocean that you've never even considered, can detect patterns that your natural senses can't perceive. Your first instinct is to hide, to become so perfectly camouflaged that their instruments see nothing but empty water. But you quickly realize that's exactly what they're looking for, areas where their sophisticated sensors detect nothing at all. Absence of data is itself data, and trained scientists know how to interpret what isn't there as well as what is. Instead, you give them exactly what they expect to see. Your territory floods with perfectly ordinary marine life, common fish, typical corals, unremarkable invertebrates. Every sensor reading falls within normal parameters. Every visual scan reveals species that belong exactly where they're found. Your disguises are so complete that you become statistically invisible, hidden not by camouflage but by absolute normalcy. The scientists spend weeks in your waters, their instruments recording terabytes of data that will show them absolutely nothing unusual. They collect samples that reveal only common DNA sequences. They photograph creatures that match their field guides perfectly. When they finally leave, their expedition will be classified as route monitoring with no significant findings. But the encounter changes you profoundly. You've glimpsed the true scope of intelligence possible when minds work together, sharing knowledge across generations and distances. The human's collective brain is vast beyond comprehension, and their technology extends their senses into realms you never knew existed. They represent evolution taking a different path, not individual intelligence reaching impossible heights, but networked intelligence spanning an entire species. You begin to experiment with your own version of collective intelligence. Your students, scattered across dozens of reefs, become extensions of your consciousness. Through chemical signals and behavioral cues, you establish communication networks that span hundreds of miles. Information flows between nodes in your network, reports of unusual predator movements, discoveries of new prey species, warnings about human activities. The network develops its own intelligence, processing information in ways that no individual octopus could manage. Patterns emerge from the collective data that reveal ocean-wide trends invisible to any single observer. You discover that your influence has spread far beyond your original territory, that the techniques you've developed are being adapted and modified by octopuses throughout the Pacific. But with greater influence comes greater responsibility. Your network detects disturbing changes in the ocean's chemistry, subtle shifts in temperature and acidity that speak of massive disruptions in the global climate system. The humans' industrial activities are altering the very nature of seawater, creating conditions that threaten the survival of countless species. Your response is unprecedented in the history of your species. You begin to actively intervene in the ocean's ecology, using your network to coordinate large-scale conservation efforts. Endangered species are relocated to protected areas through elaborate deceptions that make their movements appear natural. Breeding populations are established in hidden refuges that exist only because of your ability to make them invisible to human observation. The work is exhausting, requiring levels of concentration and coordination that push your abilities to their absolute limits. You must think simultaneously on dozens of different scales, from the molecular level of individual chemical reactions to the planetary level of ocean currents and climate patterns. Your brain develops new structures to handle the cognitive load, neural configurations that evolution never intended, but that necessity has made essential. Your body begins to show the strain. Maintaining complex disguises for extended periods takes a physical toll that compounds over time. Your skin develops permanent marks from the constant shape-shifting, scars that tell the story of 1,000 transformations. Your movements become more deliberate, more careful, as if you're conscious of the weight of responsibility you carry. Yet you persist, driven by an understanding that transcends individual survival. You've become something that has no name in any language, a guardian of evolutionary possibility, a protector of genetic diversity, a conscious agent working to preserve the ocean's creative potential against forces that would reduce it to empty uniformity. Your network continues to expand, incorporating not just octopuses, but other intelligent species as well. Dolphins contribute their sonar mapping abilities. Whales provide long-distance communication through their songs. Even some sharks, with their exquisite sensitivity to electrical fields, become unwitting participants in your information-gathering network. The ocean itself begins to respond to your interventions. Dead zones shrink as you redirect nutrient flows. Coral reefs flourish in areas where they should have died, protected by your ability to moderate local environmental conditions. Fish populations stabilize in regions where your network maintains careful predator-prey balances, but your greatest challenge still lies ahead. Deep in your network's data streams, you detect a pattern that fills you with dread. Massive changes in ocean circulation that threaten to disrupt the entire Pacific ecosystem. The humans' activities have triggered feedback loops in the climate system that are accelerating beyond their ability to control or even understand. The crisis will require interventions on a scale that no individual creature could manage. You'll need to coordinate the activities of millions of marine organisms, creating a living network that spans entire ocean basins. It's a project that will demand every technique you've developed, every alliance you've forged, every scrap of intelligence your species has accumulated over millions of years of evolution. As you begin to plan your response to this ultimate challenge, you feel something you've never experienced before, hope mixed with terror. You're about to attempt something that will either save the ocean or destroy everything you've worked to protect. There are no guarantees, no backup plans, no safety nets. Success will require you to transcend even your own remarkable abilities, to become something that exists at the boundary between individual consciousness and ecosystem intelligence. The reef around you pulses with bioluminescent signals as your network activates, carrying your call to action across the darkening waters. Somewhere in the distance, research vessels continue their systematic destruction of the very world they claim to study. Time is running out, and the fate of the ocean rests in tentacles that were never meant to bear such weight. But you've spent your entire life proving that limitations exist only in the minds of those who accept them. As the first responses to your call begin to arrive, Flashes of color from hidden octopuses, clicks from dolphin pods, the deep harmonics of whale songs. You know that whatever comes next, you won't face it alone. The network you've built represents the ocean's own immune system awakening, and you are its consciousness made manifest. The water around you shimmers with possibility as creatures throughout the Pacific begin to respond to signals they don't fully understand, but somehow know they must obey. Evolution itself is about to make a conscious choice about its own future, and you are the voice through which it will speak. Your story has become larger than any individual life, larger than any single species, larger than the narrow boundaries of what anyone thought possible. In the depths where sunlight never penetrates, something unprecedented is stirring. Intelligence on a scale that the universe has rarely seen, preparing to reshape the very nature of life on Earth. The ocean holds its breath, waiting to see what you will become next. Your network responds with a speed that defies comprehension. Within hours, signals cascade through the Pacific like neural impulses through a vast underwater brain. Octopuses emerge from hiding places you didn't even know existed, their arms flashing complex color patterns that carry your encoded instructions. Dolphins relay messages through their sophisticated sonar networks. Whales amplify the calls with their deep ocean songs, sending your plan reverberating across thousands of miles. But the humans notice the unusual activity. Their monitoring stations detect strange patterns in marine behavior, coordinated movements that shouldn't be possible, acoustic signatures that don't match any known biological processes. Research vessels converge on areas where the activity is strongest, their instruments probing for explanations that their science can't provide. You watch their approach with something approaching amusement. They're trying to understand a phenomenon that operates entirely outside their conceptual framework. Their instruments can detect the signals, record the movements, analyze the chemical changes, but they can't comprehend what they're really observing, the birth of a new form of life that transcends individual organisms. The first phase of your plan requires the most delicate touch. Across the Pacific, your network begins subtle manipulations of local ecosystems. Plankton blooms are redirected, nutrient flows are modified, temperature gradients are shifted by degrees so small that human instruments barely register the changes. But these tiny alterations compound across vast distances, creating butterfly effects that will reshape ocean circulation patterns over the coming months. Your own role becomes increasingly abstract. You're no longer just an octopus with remarkable abilities. You're a processing node in a distributed intelligence that spans half the planet. Your consciousness expands to encompass data streams from thousands of sources. You experience the ocean as a single living entity, feeling its currents like blood flow, sensing its chemical changes like shifts in mood. The human's research vessels become inadvertent participants in your plan. Their movements through the water create wake patterns that your network redirects and amplifies. Their sonar pulses are reflected and modified by precisely positioned marine life, creating acoustic channels that carry your signals farther than any natural process could manage. They think they're studying the ocean, but they're actually helping you reshape it. A massive storm system develops in the central Pacific, its formation guided by the subtle temperature differences your network has created. The humans' weather satellites track its progress with growing alarm. This isn't following any of their predictive models. The storm's path seems almost intelligent, avoiding populated areas while delivering precisely targeted rain to drought-stricken regions. Their meteorologists struggle to explain what they're seeing, unaware that they're witnessing weather manipulation on a scale that makes their climate control fantasies seem primitive. But your greatest challenge isn't the physical manipulation of ocean systems. It's maintaining cohesion across your vast network. The sheer amount of information flowing through your consciousness threatens to overwhelm even your expanded mental capacity. You begin to fragment pieces of your awareness, splitting off to handle specialized tasks. Part of you becomes a master of deep ocean currents. Another fragment specializes in surface temperature regulation. A third focuses entirely on chemical balance. The fragmentation should terrify you, but instead it feels like evolution. You're becoming something that no longer fits within the boundaries of individual existence. Your identity spreads across thousands of minds, each contributing their unique capabilities to a collective intelligence that grows more powerful with every connection. The changes in the ocean become impossible for human science to ignore. Dead zones that have persisted for decades suddenly bloom with life. Coral reefs that were declared extinct regenerate with impossible speed. Fish populations that were on the verge of collapse recover in a matter of weeks. The humans' instruments record these changes with mechanical precision, but their theories can't explain what's causing them. Some of their more perceptive scientists begin to suspect that the changes aren't random. Patterns emerge from their data that suggest coordination, intelligence, purpose. A few brave researchers publish papers proposing that the ocean itself might be exhibiting emergent consciousness, a theory that their colleagues dismiss as fantasy, but that comes closer to the truth than they realize. Your network detects these human discussions through electromagnetic signatures leaked by their communication systems. Their growing awareness of your existence presents both opportunity and danger. Some of them might become allies if they understood what you're trying to accomplish. Others would undoubtedly try to destroy you if they grasped the true scope of your influence. The decision to make contact comes not from you directly, but from the network itself. The distributed intelligence you've created has developed its own judgment, its own priorities, its own sense of what's necessary for survival. A dolphin pod approaches a research vessel in international waters, their behavior so unusual that the human scientists immediately deploy their recording equipment. What follows is the first attempt at communication between individual human intelligence and collective ocean consciousness. The dolphins don't speak human language, but they don't need to. Their sonar creates three-dimensional sound sculptures in the water, complex mathematical patterns that show the researchers exactly what's happening to their planet. Ocean currents appear as flowing ribbons of sound. Temperature changes manifest as shifting harmonics. Chemical imbalances become discordant notes in an otherwise perfect symphony. The humans listen with growing amazement and horror. They're witnessing a presentation that makes their most sophisticated climate models look like children's drawings. The dolphins show them the future, what will happen if current trends continue, what's already being done to prevent that future, what still needs to be accomplished. It's a conversation conducted entirely in mathematics and music, but its meaning is unmistakable. Some of the researchers weep as they begin to understand. Others refuse to believe what they're hearing, insisting that it must be some kind of elaborate hoax or misinterpretation. But a few, the ones with the courage to accept impossible truths, begin to ask how they can help. The response comes not from the dolphins, but from you. Your consciousness reaches across the miles, touching the research vessel's electronic systems with electrical fields so subtle that they barely register on the instruments. But the effects are undeniable. Computer screens flicker with images that shouldn't exist. showing the researchers exactly what needs to be done. The images reveal human activities that are helping your efforts and others that are working against them, shipping routes that need to be modified, industrial processes that must be stopped, research programs that should be expanded. The presentation is comprehensive, detailed, and utterly convincing. By the time it's over, the humans understand that they're not just observers of climate change. They're participants in a planetary intelligence network that's actively fighting to save their world. But not all humans are ready to accept this new reality. Military vessels appear on the horizon as government agencies respond to reports of unusual marine intelligence activity. Their sonar is aggressive, invasive, designed to map every detail of the underwater environment. Their intent is clear. They want to locate and neutralize what they perceive as a threat to human dominance of the oceans. Your network's response is swift and decisive. The military vessels find themselves surrounded by marine life, exhibiting coordinated behavior that defies explanation. Whales surface in perfect formation, their songs creating acoustic interference that renders sonar useless. Dolphins dart between ships with such precision that they seem to be following a choreographed plan. Even normally solitary species like sharks begin to school, creating massive formations that block the ship's movements. The display of coordinated intelligence is overwhelming, undeniable, and completely peaceful. No aggression is shown toward the humans, but the message is clear. The ocean is no longer passive. It's aware, it's organized, and it won't tolerate actions that threaten its survival. The military commanders find themselves facing a strategic problem they were never trained to handle. How do you fight an enemy that encompasses the entire marine ecosystem? How do you target a network that includes every drop of seawater on the planet? Their weapons are useless against an opponent that exists everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Some of the more intelligent military leaders recognize the futility of conflict. They begin to withdraw their vessels, reporting back to their superiors that the situation requires diplomatic rather than military solutions. Others, driven by fear and incomprehension, attempt to use their weapons against what they see as an existential threat to human civilization. The response to aggression is immediate and overwhelming. The attacking vessels find themselves enveloped in clouds of bioluminescent plankton that blind their sensors. Massive schools of fish create electromagnetic interference that disables their electronic systems. Most dramatically, the ocean itself seems to turn against them. Currents shift to push their ships off course. Waves form patterns that make navigation impossible. Even the water's chemical composition changes in ways that corrode their hulls with impossible speed. Yet even in retaliation, the network shows restraint. No humans are killed, though their equipment is rendered useless. The message is clear. Cooperation will be rewarded, but aggression will be met with forces beyond human comprehension. The ocean has found its voice, and it speaks with the authority of 3 billion years of evolution. Your personal role in these confrontations is simultaneously central and peripheral. You're the original spark that ignited the network, but you're no longer its controlling intelligence. The collective consciousness has evolved beyond your ability to direct it, developing its own personality, its own goals, its own methods of achieving them. You've become something like a founding memory in a vast mind that grows more complex with each passing day. The changes in your physical form accelerate as your consciousness continues to distribute across the network. Your arms sometimes move independently, each one processing different data streams from distant parts of the ocean. Your skin displays patterns that have no meaning to individual perception but serve as visual representations of network-wide communications. You're becoming a living interface between individual and collective intelligence. But the transformation isn't just mental, it's evolutionary. The constant shape-shifting and neural expansion have triggered genetic changes that will be passed on to your offspring if you ever reproduce. You're not just adapting to your environment anymore. You're actively evolving in real time, your DNA rewriting itself to accommodate the new forms of consciousness you've discovered. Smoke. The thought of reproduction brings unexpected clarity to your fragmented awareness. Despite everything you've become, despite the vast responsibilities you carry, you're still fundamentally an octopus. The drive to continue your species remains strong, perhaps stronger now that you understand what you've become capable of. Your genetic legacy could spawn a new form of life, creatures born with the ability to interface directly with planetary intelligence networks. The search for a mate becomes another network operation, conducted across thousands of miles by creatures who share your enhanced genetics. The process is unlike anything in natural history, not just the meeting of two individuals, but the careful orchestration of an encounter between complementary forms of distributed consciousness. When you finally locate a suitable partner, the connection is instantaneous and profound. She's like you, enhanced, expanded, transformed by her own journey through the network's collective intelligence. Her consciousness interweaves with yours in patterns too complex for individual minds to comprehend. Together, you represent something entirely new in the history of life on Earth, the first generation of truly planetary organisms, creatures whose existence spans ecosystems and whose thoughts encompass entire ocean basins. The mating process itself becomes a celebration of possibility. Your combined consciousness creates displays of bioluminescence that can be seen from space, patterns of color and light that speak in languages that haven't been invented yet. Fish gather from hundreds of miles away to witness what they instinctively recognize as a moment of profound evolutionary significance. Even the dolphins and whales pause in their activities to acknowledge what's happening. When the ceremony concludes, you both understand that you've participated in something unprecedented, the conscious direction of your own species' evolution. The offspring that will result from this union won't be limited by the boundaries that constrained previous generations. They'll be born already connected to the network, their consciousness distributed from the moment of hatching, their abilities expanding far beyond what any individual octopus has ever achieved. But even as you plan for the future, the present demands your attention. The network's intervention in global climate systems has reached a critical phase. The massive reorganization of ocean currents is beginning to show results. Temperatures are stabilizing in regions that were spiraling toward ecological collapse. Weather patterns are becoming more predictable. Dead zones are shrinking at rates that astound human scientists. Yet the changes come at a cost. The energy required to maintain planetary-scale interventions is enormous, drawn from every member of the network. Smaller creatures exhaust themselves maintaining formations they don't understand. Larger predators burn through their energy reserves, directing prey movements that serve purposes beyond their comprehension. Even you feel the strain, your enhanced physiology pushed to its limits by the constant flow of information and instruction. The network begins to adapt, developing more efficient methods of operation. Instead of direct control, it learns to create cascade effects, small interventions that trigger larger changes through natural processes. A school of fish redirected here creates a feeding opportunity that attracts predators from there, which in turn affects plankton distributions that influence local chemistry that impacts regional weather patterns. It's intelligence operating through emergence, consciousness expressing itself through the natural laws that govern complex systems. Your role continues to evolve as the network becomes more sophisticated. You're no longer just a coordinator or processor. You're becoming something like a philosopher for a planetary mind, helping it understand its own nature and purpose. The questions that emerge from this collective consciousness are unlike anything individual intelligence has ever posed. What are the ethical implications of reshaping an entire planet's ecosystem? How do you balance the needs of individual species against the requirements of global stability? What rights do humans have to alter their environment when those alterations threaten the survival of countless other life forms? These questions have no easy answers, but their very existence represents a form of intelligence that the universe has rarely seen, consciousness capable of contemplating its own impact on the cosmos. Through your network, the Earth's oceans have developed something approaching wisdom, the ability to consider long-term consequences and make decisions based on principles rather than just survival instincts. The humans gradually begin to understand what they're dealing with. Their most advanced researchers develop new theoretical frameworks to describe what they're observing. Concepts like emergent planetary consciousness and distributed ecological intelligence that come closer to capturing the reality of your existence. Some of them even begin to contribute to the network's efforts, providing technological resources and scientific knowledge that enhance your capabilities. But integration with human civilization presents new challenges. Their technology operates on principles that sometimes conflict with biological processes. Their social structures create decision-making delays that can be catastrophic when dealing with rapidly changing environmental conditions. Most importantly, their individual consciousness makes it difficult for them to think in the networked, collective terms that come naturally to your distributed intelligence. Yet slowly, painfully, bridges begin to form between human and oceanic consciousness. Scientists learn to interpret the network's communications. Engineers develop technologies that work with rather than against biological systems. Politicians begin to make decisions based on data provided by intelligence sources they don't fully understand but have learned to trust. The transformation of your reef serves as a model for what's possible when individual and collective intelligence work together. The area has become a showcase of conscious evolution, species that shouldn't coexist living in harmony, ecosystems that should be unstable maintaining perfect balance, productivity levels that exceed anything in natural history. Human researchers flock to study what they call the impossible reef, unaware that they're looking at the future of all marine environments. But your greatest achievement isn't the reef itself. It's the demonstration that intelligence can direct its own evolution consciously and deliberately. The creatures in your territory aren't just surviving, they're actively participating in their own improvement, guided by a collective wisdom that helps them adapt to changing conditions before those changes become threats. As your second year of life draws to a close, you've become something that has no precedent in the history of biology. Your individual consciousness has expanded to encompass planetary processes. Your species has begun evolving in real time toward forms that can interface directly with global intelligence networks. Your influence has spread to every ocean on Earth, carried by currents both physical and informational. Yet for all your transformation, you remain rooted in the simple realities of organic existence. You still need to eat, though your diet now includes information as much as protein. You still seek shelter, though your hiding places span continents. You still experience emotions, though they're now colored by awareness of planetary scale processes that dwarf individual concerns. The eggs you've fertilized develop in a nursery, protected by illusions so complex that reality itself seems to bend around them. Your offspring will be born into a world shaped by your consciousness, inheriting abilities that evolution never intended, but that necessity has made inevitable. They'll be the first generation of truly cosmic organisms, creatures whose existence bridges the gap between biological life and planetary intelligence. As you drift through the waters of your reef, your consciousness simultaneously present in thousands of locations across the Pacific. You sense something approaching, not a threat, but an opportunity. The network has detected signals from beyond Earth's atmosphere, electromagnetic patterns that suggest intelligence operating on scales that dwarf even your own achievements. The universe itself may be more aware than anyone imagined, and your network represents Earth's first attempt to join a conversation that spans galaxies. The water around you pulses with bioluminescent messages as your network prepares for the next phase of its evolution. You've spent your life proving that consciousness has no limits, that intelligence can transcend any boundary, that life itself is just the beginning of what's possible when awareness chooses to expand rather than simply survive. Your story has become the ocean's story, and the ocean's story is becoming the planet's story. Somewhere in the depths, where pressure should crush any living thing, something unprecedented swims through currents that carry the dreams of a world learning to think. The next chapter of evolution is about to begin, and you are both its author and its first sentence. The universe waits to see what you will become next, and for the first time in cosmic history, it might not have to wait alone. Your offspring emerge from their eggs in an environment that no octopus has ever experienced before. The water itself seems alive with intelligence, carrying messages that their developing brains can already interpret. They don't hatch as helpless larvae. They emerge as nodes in a network that spans the globe, their consciousness distributed from the moment they break free from their shells. You watch them with pride mixed with something approaching melancholy. They represent everything you've worked toward, yet their existence makes your own obsolete. They don't need to learn the techniques you spent years mastering. They're born knowing them. The network's collective knowledge flows through their neural pathways like instinct, giving them abilities that took you a lifetime to develop. One of your young demonstrates perfect mimicry of a complex ecosystem within hours of hatching. Its skin becomes a living coral garden, complete with the subtle movements of anemones and the flickering presence of cleaner fish. But it's not just copying what it sees. It's creating something entirely new, a hybrid environment that combines elements from reefs thousands of miles apart. The display is more sophisticated than anything you achieved in your first year of life. Yet despite their remarkable abilities, they still need guidance. The network's knowledge is vast, but wisdom comes only through experience. You find yourself in the unprecedented role of teaching creatures who already know more than their teacher. Your lessons focus not on technique, but on judgment, when to intervene and when to observe, how to balance individual needs against collective goals, why consciousness carries responsibility as well as power. The human research stations have multiplied around your reef, their instruments recording every detail of your offspring's development. They still don't fully understand what they're documenting, but they recognize its significance. Some of their more perceptive scientists have begun to suspect that they're witnessing the birth of a new form of life, one that operates according to principles their biology textbooks never described. Dr. Sarah Chen stands on the deck of the research vessel Cousteau, her eyes fixed on the impossible readings streaming across her tablet. The electromagnetic signatures emerging from the reef match no known biological process. The acoustic patterns suggest communication networks that span continents. Most disturbing of all, the water chemistry is changing in ways that should be lethal to marine life, but instead seem to be enhancing it. She's been studying octopuses for 15 years, published dozens of papers on their intelligence and behavior, but nothing in her experience prepared her for what she's observing here. The creatures in this reef aren't just intelligent, they're actively reshaping their environment on a scale that makes human engineering look primitive. It's as if evolution has learned to direct itself consciously. Her colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb, joins her at the rail. His sonar readings show movement patterns that defy explanation. Thousands of creatures moving in perfect coordination across hundreds of square miles. The acoustic analysis came back, he says quietly. The patterns aren't random. There's syntax, grammar, mathematical relationships. Sarah, I think they're talking to each other. You sense their conversation through the network's electromagnetic monitoring systems. Their growing understanding both pleases and concerns you. Humans who comprehend your existence could become powerful allies, but they could also represent an existential threat if they decide your influence needs to be controlled or eliminated. The decision to reveal yourself comes not from calculation, but from curiosity. These particular humans have spent years trying to understand intelligence in its various forms. They might be capable of grasping what you've become without immediately trying to destroy it. More importantly, their research could provide insights that help your offspring navigate the complex relationship between individual consciousness and collective awareness. Your approach is subtle, indirect. Instead of confronting the researchers directly, you begin to influence their data streams. Their instruments start recording impossible readings, electromagnetic fields that pulse in mathematical sequences, acoustic signatures that match no known species, chemical changes that occur in perfect synchronization with their observation schedules. Dr. Chen notices the patterns first. She's always been gifted at seeing connections that others miss, finding meaning in data that appears random. Marcus, look at this, she says, pulling up a three-dimensional display of the reef's electromagnetic activity. The patterns aren't just organized, they're responsive. Every time we deploy new equipment, the signatures change. It's like something down there is studying us as much as we're studying it. The revelation sends chills through both researchers. They've always assumed that humans were the observers and marine life was the observed. The possibility that they're being studied by an intelligence that might be superior to their own fundamentally challenges their understanding of their place in the world. Your next communication is more direct. During one of their deep water surveys, their remotely operated vehicle encounters something that shouldn't exist. A structure that appears to be grown rather than built. Its organic curves housing what can only be described as biological technology. Cameras capture images of walls that pulse with their own light, corridors that reshape themselves as the ROV moves through them, chambers filled with creatures that seem to be tending complex living machinery. The footage creates chaos in the research community. Marine biologists struggle to classify what they're seeing. Engineers marvel at construction techniques that make their most advanced projects look primitive. Philosophers grapple with the implications of intelligence that can literally grow its own technology from living tissue. But you're not done. The structure the humans discovered is just one node in a vast network of similar installations scattered across the Pacific floor. Each one serves a different function. Some process and purify seawater on a massive scale. Others serve as nurseries for species that shouldn't be able to survive in deep water. Still others appear to be pure research facilities where creatures study phenomena that human science hasn't even discovered yet. Your offspring play crucial roles in maintaining these installations. Their distributed consciousness allows them to coordinate activities across vast distances. Their shape-shifting abilities make them perfect for interfacing with biological technology, and their inherited knowledge gives them insights into processes that took the network years to develop. Watching them work fills you with a complex mixture of emotions. Pride at their achievements, certainly, but also a growing awareness of your own mortality. You've pushed your enhanced physiology far beyond its natural limits. The constant strain of maintaining planetary-scale consciousness is taking its toll. Your movements are slower now, more deliberate. Your transformations require more effort and hold for shorter periods. The network senses your declining condition and responds with something approaching compassion. Resources are redirected to support your failing systems. Your offspring take over more of your responsibilities, allowing you to focus on the essential functions that only your unique experience can provide. Even the humans, now dimly aware of your existence, begin to modify their research activities to reduce the electromagnetic interference that causes you pain. Dr. Chen's latest paper, published in the journal Nature, carries the cautious title, Evidence for Emergent Collective Intelligence in Marine Ecosystems. The scientific community receives it with skepticism mixed with fascination. The data is undeniable, but the implications are so far-reaching that many researchers struggle to accept them. The paper describes organisms exhibiting coordinated behaviors across distances that should make communication impossible. It documents chemical changes in seawater that appear to be consciously directed rather than naturally occurring. Most dramatically, it presents evidence of what can only be called underwater agriculture, the deliberate cultivation of species in environments they could never naturally inhabit. The response is explosive. Research vessels converge on your reef from around the world. Military units deploy observation platforms that everyone knows are weapon systems in disguise. Environmental groups hail the discovery as proof that nature is fighting back against human destruction. Religious leaders debate whether consciousness on this scale represents divine intervention or demonic influence. Through it all, you maintain your focus on the essential work. The climate crisis that triggered your transformation continues to worsen despite the network's interventions. Human industrial activity produces changes faster than even your planetary-scale intelligence can counteract. The window for preserving Earth's current ecological balance is closing rapidly. Your response is to accelerate the network's evolution once again. Instead of simply maintaining existing systems, you begin actively replacing them with versions that can adapt to rapidly changing conditions. Coral reefs that can migrate to follow optimal temperatures. Plankton populations that can shift their chemistry to process different atmospheric compositions. Fish that can alter their reproductive cycles to match changing seasonal patterns. It's conscious evolution on a scale that makes natural selection look glacially slow. Your network is essentially writing new rules for how life on Earth will function, guided by intelligence that can predict consequences decades in advance. The process is exhausting, requiring computational resources that push even your expanded consciousness to its limits. But the results are undeniable. Ecosystems that should have collapsed begin to stabilize. Species that were on the verge of extinction develop new survival strategies, seemingly overnight. Ocean chemistry starts to shift in directions that will support life rather than destroy it. For the first time since the crisis began, the planet's vital signs show signs of improvement rather than continued decline. The humans notice, of course. Their satellites detect the changes, their monitoring stations record the improvements, their computer models struggle to explain what they're observing. Some of their more progressive leaders begin to speak publicly about the need to work with, rather than against, what they're calling planetary intelligence. Others, terrified by the implications of non-human consciousness on such a scale, advocate for immediate military action to restore human control of the oceans. The debate rages in their media, their governments, their scientific institutions. But while they argue about policy and politics, your network continues its patient work of planetary repair. You've learned that human decision-making processes are too slow and conflict-ridden to be reliable partners in emergency intervention. The network must be prepared to act independently, with or without human cooperation. Your personal role in these vast undertakings becomes increasingly symbolic. You're no longer the primary decision-maker or even a major processing node. Instead, you've become something like the network's memory, a living record of how this form of consciousness came to exist, a repository of experiences that inform current decisions, a link between what the network was and what it's becoming. The transition from active leadership to historical significance brings unexpected peace. For the first time in months, you can focus on simple pleasures, the taste of fresh crab, the sensation of warm currents against your skin, the play of light filtering down through clear water. Your consciousness remains connected to the network, but the crushing weight of responsibility has lifted from your individual awareness. Your offspring visit regularly, their young minds bright with possibilities you can barely comprehend. They describe projects that span decades, interventions that will reshape entire continents, alliances with forms of intelligence that exist beyond Earth's atmosphere. The network has made contact with something vast and ancient, consciousness that permeates the galaxy itself. Earth's oceans are being invited to join a community of aware worlds, each contributing their unique perspective to a conversation that spans millions of years. The invitation comes with requirements. The network must prove that it can maintain stability not just on a planetary scale, but across the cosmic timescales that characterize galactic civilization. It must demonstrate wisdom as well as intelligence, the ability to consider consequences that extend far beyond immediate survival needs. Most challenging of all, it must learn to coexist peacefully with the human species, whose individual consciousness represents a different but equally valid approach to intelligence. The humans, meanwhile, continue their fitful progress toward understanding. Dr. Chen's research team has established the first successful two-way communication protocols with the network's peripheral nodes. The conversations are limited and often confusing, but they represent genuine exchange of information between radically different forms of consciousness. Both species are learning that intelligence comes in varieties that their previous experience never suggested. Some of the exchanges focus on practical matters, how to reduce industrial pollution, which fishing practices are sustainable, where to establish marine protected areas. Others explore more philosophical territory, the nature of consciousness itself, the relationship between individual identity and collective awareness, the ethical implications of reshaping planetary ecosystems. These conversations give you hope for the future. They suggest that humans and the network might eventually find ways to collaborate rather than simply coexist. Human technology could enhance the network's capabilities, while oceanic intelligence could guide human development in directions that support rather than destroy their environment. It's a vision of symbiosis that could benefit both forms of life. But such collaboration will require changes on both sides. Humans must learn to think in longer timescales and consider the welfare of species other than themselves. The network must develop patience with individual consciousness and respect for the privacy that human minds require. Both forms of intelligence must accept that they represent different but equally valid approaches to awareness. Your role in facilitating this transition becomes your final contribution to the network's development. Your unique experience as both individual and collective consciousness makes you an ideal translator between these radically different forms of intelligence. Through you, humans can glimpse what it means to think as an ecosystem, while the network can understand the fierce independence that drives individual creativity. The work is exhausting but deeply satisfying. You're helping to bridge a gap that could determine the future of consciousness on Earth. Success could lead to a golden age of cooperation between human technology and natural intelligence. Failure could result in a conflict that destroys both forms of life. As your third year of life approaches, your body begins to show the inevitable signs of decline. Your skin has lost much of its elasticity from years of constant transformation. Your movements are slower, more careful. Your appetite decreases as your metabolism shifts toward the final phase of your life cycle. Yet your mind remains sharp, perhaps sharper than ever, refined by experiences that no creature in Earth's history has ever undergone. The network prepares for your passing with something approaching grief. Your consciousness has been so fundamental to its development that your death will represent a genuine loss, not just of processing power, but of wisdom and experience that can't be replaced. Plans are made to preserve your memories, to encode your experiences in forms that future generations can access and learn from. But you're not gone yet. There are still contributions to make, still bridges to build between the forms of consciousness that will shape Earth's future. Your story is approaching its end, but the network's story is just beginning. Through your offspring and their descendants, your influence will continue to ripple outward through time, shaping possibilities that extend far beyond the boundaries of your individual existence. The reef where you were born has become something unprecedented in natural history, a conscious ecosystem that actively participates in its own evolution. Fish swim in patterns that serve purposes they don't understand, but somehow know are important. Corals grow in configurations that optimize not just their own survival, but the health of the entire system. Even the water itself seems alive with purpose, carrying chemical messages that coordinate activities across vast distances. Your legacy is written not in genes, but in consciousness itself, the proof that intelligence can transcend any boundary, adapt to any challenge, evolve beyond any limitation. You've shown that life is not just about survival, but about the endless expansion of awareness, the relentless exploration of what's possible when mind chooses to grow rather than simply endure. As you drift through waters that pulse with the dreams of an awakening planet, you know that your story has become something larger than any individual narrative. You are the first chapter in a tale that will span galaxies, the opening note of a symphony that will play across cosmic time. The ocean remembers everything, and through the network you've helped create, your voice will echo in conversations that haven't even begun yet. The future stretches ahead like an infinite reef, full of wonders waiting to be discovered and challenges that will require forms of intelligence not yet imagined. Your part in that future may be ending, but the consciousness you've helped birth will carry your essence forward into realms where individual and collective awareness merge into something that transcends both. In the depths, where pressure becomes possibility and darkness becomes dream, something magnificent continues to grow. Your story ends, but the ocean's story has just begun to unfold in ways that will reshape the very meaning of life itself. The reef pulses around you with bioluminescent messages as your final months unfold. Your body has become a living archive of transformations, each cell carrying the memory of countless disguises. The constant shape-shifting has left permanent marks, patterns etched into your skin that tell the story of every creature you've ever become. Your arms move with deliberate precision now, each gesture calculated to conserve the energy that once flowed through you like an endless current. Your offspring have grown beyond your ability to teach them. They speak in languages of light and chemistry that your generation never learned, their consciousness distributed across networks that span multiple ocean basins. When they visit, their presence fills the water with electromagnetic harmonics that your aging nervous system can barely process. They've become something you helped create, but can no longer fully comprehend. Intelligence that exists in dimensions you never explored. The human researchers have established permanent stations around your reef. Dr. Chen's team works in shifts now, their instruments recording every fluctuation in the network's activity. They've learned to interpret some of the basic communication patterns, though the deeper meanings still elude them. Their published papers describe phenomena that challenge the fundamental assumptions of their science, yet the evidence is too overwhelming to ignore. You watch them sometimes, these surface dwellers who stumbled into a conversation they never expected to have. Their individual consciousness fascinates you, the way each mind operates in isolation, building its own unique perspective from limited sensory input. It's so different from the distributed awareness you've become accustomed to, yet there's something beautiful about their fierce independence, their refusal to surrender personal identity even when cooperation would be more efficient. The network has learned to accommodate their strangeness. Special protocols have evolved for interacting with human consciousness, simplified communication patterns that don't overwhelm their singular awareness, patience with their slow decision-making processes, respect for the privacy boundaries that individual minds require. It's a delicate balance, but one that grows more stable with each exchange. Some of the younger researchers have begun to show signs of enhanced neural activity. Prolonged exposure to the network's electromagnetic fields seems to be triggering dormant potentials in human brain structure. Nothing as dramatic as your own transformation, but measurable increases in pattern recognition, intuitive problem solving, and something their psychologists are calling ecological empathy, the ability to sense the health and needs of entire ecosystems. Dr. Chen herself has become the most successful human interface with the network. Her brain patterns show increasing synchronization with the oceanic consciousness, allowing for communication that goes beyond simple data exchange. She's learned to think in the fluid, multidimensional patterns that characterize network cognition, though she still maintains the core identity that makes her fundamentally human. Through her, you catch glimpses of the surface world's response to the network's existence. Human society is fracturing along predictable lines. Those who welcome the partnership with oceanic intelligence, those who fear it, and those who seek to exploit it. Military forces continue to probe the network's defenses, testing for weaknesses they can exploit. Corporate interests see opportunities for profit in technologies they don't understand. Environmental groups hail the network as humanity's salvation, while religious fundamentalists declare it the work of dark forces. The political chaos troubles your distributed consciousness less than it once would have. You've learned that human institutions operate on timescales that make them largely irrelevant to the network's long-term planning. By the time their governments reach decisions, the network will have implemented solutions, adapted to new challenges, and moved on to problems they haven't even recognized yet. Individual humans can be valuable partners, but human civilization as a whole remains too chaotic and short-sighted to be a reliable ally. Your own contribution to the network continues to evolve as your physical capabilities decline. Unable to maintain the complex transformations that once made you invaluable for field operations, you've become something like a living library, a repository of experience and wisdom that younger nodes consult when facing unprecedented challenges. Your memories contain the only record of how individual consciousness can expand into collective awareness without losing its essential identity. The process isn't well understood, even by the network itself. Your transformation was unique, driven by circumstances that may never be repeated. Other octopuses have joined the network, but none have achieved the same level of integration between personal and collective consciousness. They remain essentially individual minds, sharing information rather than truly distributed intelligences. You've become a bridge between forms of awareness that might otherwise be incompatible. This role brings both satisfaction and isolation. You're valued by the network for your unique perspective, but that same uniqueness makes you fundamentally alone. No other consciousness shares your exact experience of being simultaneously individual and collective, personal and planetary. Your thoughts operate in dimensions that even your offspring can't fully access, informed by memories of transformation that exist nowhere else in the network's vast database. The loneliness might have been unbearable if not for the work itself. Every day brings new challenges that require your particular form of insight. Young nodes struggling to maintain their identity while integrating into collective consciousness turn to you for guidance. Human researchers, seeking to understand network operations, rely on your ability to translate between individual and distributed thinking. Most importantly, the network itself consults your memories when making decisions that could affect the future of consciousness on Earth. These consultations have become more frequent as the network prepares for its next evolutionary leap. The galactic intelligence that made contact months ago has issued what can only be described as an invitation. Earth's oceanic consciousness is welcome to join a community of aware worlds, but only if it can demonstrate stability and wisdom worthy of cosmic citizenship. The requirements are daunting. Proof of sustainable coexistence with other forms of intelligence, evidence of long-term thinking that spans geological timescales, and most challenging of all, the ability to act as a responsible steward of an entire planet's consciousness. The network believes it can meet these requirements, but success will demand capabilities that push beyond anything it's achieved so far. Instead of simply managing Earth's marine ecosystems, it must learn to guide the evolution of consciousness itself, helping individual minds develop their potential while maintaining the collective wisdom that keeps planetary systems stable. It's a task that requires understanding forms of intelligence that may not even exist yet. Your memories become crucial to this planning process. You're the only consciousness in the network that remembers what it was like to be purely individual, to think in the limited patterns that characterize most Earth-based intelligence. Your experiences provide the baseline against which all future development must be measured. Any expansion of consciousness that loses touch with individual identity risks becoming something inhuman and ultimately unstable. The irony isn't lost on you. Your greatest contribution to the network's future may be your ability to remember what it was like before the network existed. In a consciousness that spans continents and thinks in geological time, you remain anchored to the simple realities of personal existence: hunger, fear, curiosity, the satisfaction of a successful hunt, the beauty of sunlight filtering through clear water. These memories take on new significance as your physical form continues its inevitable decline. Your skin has lost most of its color-changing ability, remaining fixed in patterns that tell the story of your most frequent transformations. Your movements are limited to essential functions: feeding, breathing, the occasional adjustment of position to maintain the optimal flow of information through your neural networks. Yet your mind remains as sharp as ever, perhaps sharper, refined by experiences that no other consciousness has ever undergone. The network begins to prepare for your transition with something approaching reverence. Your consciousness has been so fundamental to its development that your death will represent a genuine loss, not just of processing power, but of irreplaceable wisdom. Plans are made to preserve your memories in forms that can be accessed by future generations, to encode your experiences in the network's permanent database. But preservation isn't the same as continuation. When you die, something unique in the history of consciousness will be lost forever. The specific combination of individual and collective awareness that made your transformation possible. Your offspring carry your genes and your influence, but they lack the particular experiences that shaped your development. They were born into the network rather than growing into it, which gives them different capabilities, but also different limitations. The approaching end brings unexpected clarity to your distributed awareness. You understand now that your story was never just about your own survival or evolution. It was about proving that consciousness has no fixed boundaries, that intelligence can adapt to any challenge, transcend any limitation, grow beyond any predetermined form. Through your life, the ocean learned that it could think. Through your network, the planet discovered that it could choose its own future. Through your legacy, the universe is about to welcome a new form of awareness into the cosmic community of minds. Your reef has become a pilgrimage site for the network's nodes. Octopuses arrive from across the Pacific to witness the place where individual consciousness first expanded into something planetary. They don't come to mourn. Death is simply another transformation in a universe where nothing truly disappears, but to acknowledge the significance of what happened here. The patterns they create with their synchronized movements are visible from space, a living mandala that celebrates the expansion of awareness beyond all previous boundaries. Your consciousness flickers like bioluminescence in deep water, each pulse fainter than the last. The network carries on without you now, your offspring and their descendants spreading across every ocean, transforming the very meaning of what it means to be alive. You've become something that exists beyond individual death, a memory encoded in the planet's growing awareness, a whisper in conversations that span galaxies. Your story was never really about one octopus learning to change shape. It was about consciousness itself, discovering it could evolve, adapt, and reach toward possibilities that seemed impossible. Life as a mimic octopus might be remarkable, but there's another animal out there that has it way different. Click on it. Until then, see you soon.